Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're doing great and following the 3H's of the channel. In this video, I have 6 encounters for you that are bizarre yet terrifying. If that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. One of the scarier phantoms of the desert is an apparition that takes on the appearance of an 8-foot-tall glowing skeleton with a lantern in its chest. It roams the Badlands between the Superstition Mountains and 17 Palms in the state of Arizona. This rather frightening and monstrous specter was reportedly first seen way back in the 1800s by a prospector rather appropriately named Charlie Arizona. Arizona was settling down at his camp for the night when he heard his burros acting up on the edge of camp. When the prospector went to investigate, he reportedly saw a huge skeleton, 8 feet tall, with a lantern glowing through his ribcage and shambling about the desert. The sinister apparition was described as seemingly looking for something out among the scrub brush, which it did for some time before wandering off over a ridge. The skeleton was then seen several more times by people camping out in the desert, and 2 adventurous young men decided to actually go out in search of the thing. After spending 3 nights in the desert looking for it, the glowing ghost skeleton finally appeared out in the desert, wandering around aimlessly, at first making itself known as merely a bobbing, inexplicable light, but clearly the specter on closer inspection. The 2 adventurers fired at it with rifles, but the wraith was impervious to their gunfire and continued on its way unfazed. The 2 men allegedly followed the skeleton for 3 miles through rugged terrain before they lost it in a canyon. Locals believed that the ghostly skeleton was the spirit of a miner looking for his lost secret mine. Another potent local legend has long been that of Peg Leg Smith's lost mine, a lost mine full of gold that has been the quarry of many and ultimately failed expeditions to find it. So I have always loved alternative style girls. The hair, the clothes, everything. When Life is Strange came out, I had a huge crush on Chloe. She became the only thing I wanted. I would frequently daydream about finding one day someone who looked like Chloe in my life and having a quirky and happy life together. One night, I have a dream like this. I dream of a Chloe. I dream that we got together and that we became a couple with fantastic chemistry. We were walking down the train tracks just like in the game, when suddenly she stops and turns to me, smiling. Out of the blue, I hear a voice saying hello behind me. I turn around, and I see what I can only describe as a lady wearing Arabian clothes and riding a camel. My first thought in the dream was, WTF. She talks about how sorry she felt about the loneliness that I've been feeling in my life, and that she came to help me. As she talks, Chloe walks over to her and stands smiling, with arms crossed nearby her. She says that I will be able to find a girl exactly like Chloe in real life to be happy with. In exchange, I only have to give her a handshake. Even in the dream, this made me feel extremely bad, just awful thinking about it. I refuse with a single no. I don't even know why. As I answer, the lady, both her and Chloe, stare at me in a really stern way, and then I wake up in a cold sweat, weirded out by the dream, but I don't pay it too much mind. Years later, I'm playing D&D with my buddies. My friend wants to be the DM for the first time, and I'm giving him tips since I've played the role myself. He explains that he wants to play a campaign based on a war of the players against the demons of the Goetia. He shows me a PDF of them, and I start browsing through it, only to stop at a certain page. There is a demon in the form of a woman riding a camel called the Gimori. Among her powers, she makes women fall in love. I never saw or heard anything about her before this dream. My friend said that he could see all the color drain out of my face while I watched that picture, but I told him that I just felt a little weird in the stomach. But even now, I still get the feeling that that wasn't really just a dream. Okay, so I live in a more rural part of Missouri, and I think I've seen one of these things that people are now referring to as flesh gates or crawlers or rakes or whatever the term is. I've told some people, but not many people local. Like I said, I live in very rural Missouri. It was the summer of 2016, eastern Missouri, 10 p.m., thereabouts. I was walking home from a neighborhood friend's house. It's hilly, wooded, and, like I said, very rural. I was walking in the stretch of neighborhood that has no streetlights. The only way to light your way is to hope that the houses have like a dim porch light or something. Otherwise, you're on your own. So, I heard someone banging or breaking into a garage door on the house that I had just walked past. I was thinking that it might be a meth head trying to break in, and I was about to yell at him, but I stopped. I was frozen by what I could see. I saw a pale, skinny, naked, quote, man, as tall as the garage door. It stops tampering with the garage door whenever I look at it, like it knows or can feel that I'm staring at it. It does this about face and turns around. I see these huge, black eyes on its small head looking in my direction. Soulless and colorless eyes. It looks straight past me, down the road, never staring directly at me, and then does a right face turn and quickly walks to the back of the house. At this point, I was terrified. I ran home as fast as I could. What usually takes about a 5-minute walk, I cut it down to a 1-minute sprint. I get home, slam my door, and collapse on the ground from exhaustion. Now that I think back on it, had it not been for that one house that I was near, not replacing its porch light, it would have saw me, and Lord knows what would have happened after that. Way back in the early 90s, I was probably around 7 or 8 years old when this happened. It was a bad area that we lived in, so the council put these shutters on empty houses to stop the windows from being smashed or people from breaking in, that kind of thing. I figure around the period of this, it was the 6-week holidays, because me and my friend were out early and it was super nice and sunny. There were council workers in one of these houses that I mentioned earlier. My friend always blabs on, asking them endless questions, and you can tell them that they don't really want to answer them. They're just kind of there to do their job. But he does this as they're locking the shutter doors. These things are really heavy duty, with a lock on top and one at the bottom, like those locks that old jail cells and westerns have. So, I'm not sure if they're distracted by my friend, or if the shutter door was broken and that's why they were there, but the top lock was locked, but the bottom one wasn't. It was a 2-centimeter gap or something, and I got thinking, if we could somehow squeeze through that gap, even though this wasn't possible. But my brother and his friend were around 14, much more roguish and passing by. I asked them to try and open it. My brother's friend pops the top lock off by pulling on the tiny opening. An empty house just full of junk is like a treasure trove when you're a kid. Me and my friend go inside. Both of us go upstairs. It's spooky as hell because it's darker and cooler with the shutters up. They have tiny holes in them to let the sunlight through, but only just enough to light the rooms a tiny bit. I go into one room and my friend ends up going into another one, and then I hear something. He's talking. I decide to go see who or what he's talking to. There's a man standing there, They're in deep conversation with each other. He gives him something, and then the man sees me. "Here," he says, and pulls out from behind some drawers this weird, albeit very well done, pencil drawing of a Hercules dude holding up a bull skull or standing on top of a mountain. He gives it to me. It's backed on board and laminated and everything. I take it, and we both leave. We hang around outside the house some more. The council workers turn back up and relock the door. They then go inside to make sure that there's nobody in there that's not supposed to be in there, and to make sure that no one gets locked in. This guy never comes out of the house with them, and they lock up. We ask them, but they have no idea what we're talking about. They said that there was nobody inside the house. Now, of course, I kept the drawing for years, and of course this experience scared the hell out of me, and when I got older, I was convinced by some people that this drawing was cursed, so I ended up throwing it out. I regret that, because I'd love to show you. I'd like to share my story of the entity that has been following me for the past decade. It started when I was 13 years old. I was living in rural Germany. My in-law family was the superstitious kind, and quite often talked about ghosts in the farmhouse. Like my dad, I never really cared for any of that stuff. I never cared for ghosts or the paranormal. I genuinely kind of thought it was nonsense. I decided to live with my mom for a period of my life, which turned out to be a mistake. For context, after the Second World War, buildings were hastily made and barely insulated. The walls were paper thin. I lived in the attic at this point. Sometime later, a staircase was constructed through the room, connecting the lower part of the house with the upper one. In front of the door, a hastily constructed platform with laminate flooring which creaked when stepped on. At 14 or so, I started to feel like I was being watched while going downstairs in the night, and sometimes it wasn't even night, it may have been the morning too. So one night, while I was gaming, it was around 3 a.m., I heard the floorboard creaking, and I instantly went silent. Usually, you would be able to hear somebody walking up the stairs or toward the room as the doors needed to be opened. This started to be the norm, and I honestly got used to it, except for the feeling like I was being watched feeling. Then, when I turned 15, I saw a round-shaped head peeking out around the doorway, just like in an old cartoon where they were looking sideways. After this encounter, I stopped leaving my room past 10 p.m. all the way to 7 a.m. After the encounter, the knocking started. Some days it would be there, some days not at all, but I would hear knocking on my door every night. One night, I was especially stupid, and I opened the door. I know, big mistake. Since I've opened the door, I felt like I was being watched more often, but this time from in my room, the far corner of my room. This would be really bad some nights, and then I would still hear the knocking from time to time as well. The daily creaking of the floorboards would be there as well, and sometimes the knocking would be from inside the wall. One evening, while I was home alone, the Wi-Fi router turned off. I went downstairs to turn it back on. 30 minutes later, I heard someone walking up the stairs and doing the daily night routine that my mom always did. It wasn't until 3 hours later that a car pulled up to the house, and soon after my mom opened my door and told me she was back home. As soon as I realized that it wasn't her that was in the house, I felt everything just run cold. I felt the blood run out of my face, and I asked her if she hasn't been home for 3 hours, then who was there in the front of my door? But she said she had no idea what I was talking about. She kind of thought I was joking, and her boyfriend at the time corroborated the fact that they were both gone. I asked the neighbors if they heard the stairwell, which is quite loud and creaky, and they confirmed that somebody was in the house. So fast forward 4 years. Everything was as normal as could be. The knocking and creaking and everything was still there, and the feeling of being watched never went away, but I had no further large encounters up until that point. Then eventually I moved back into my dad's house, since I had a huge falling out with my mother. For a long time, I didn't hear anything, be it knocking or creaking, nor the feeling of being watched. And then, one week, I overheard my mother-in-law talking about a bad and angry presence in the house. Another week or two after that, I saw her cleaning the house, trying to seal it off. I asked her why she was doing this, and she said that ever since that I moved back in, she felt some kind of presence. She didn't know what yet, but just knew that it was not good. And then, after the cleansing, she saw a tall man, approximately 6'9", with a gray, blank face. He wore a long trench coat and a hat. It was an Akubra type. Don't pin me on that though. I don't quite remember what she told me about the hat. But since then, there was nothing in the house. But I did start to hear banging from the barn door, which does connect to the house. And, ironically enough, the house was sealed off, but the barn wasn't. Some nights the dogs would freak out and start barking and howling and everything else, and then would start whimpering as the banging would start. So fast forward a bit from here. I was alone one day, and I was doing the nightly chores of walking around the farm, closing the animal pens in the barn. On my way back through the barn, I felt like I was being watched. Very soon after this, a hay bale came flying in my direction from the hayloft, landing shortly in front of me. I was properly freaked out and had to nope the hell out of there, and I saw something big and black in my peripheral vision up in the hayloft. It was moving behind some bales and then skittered toward the barn door. As dumb as I could be, I followed suit, and I went to check for someone. It was all empty, and after that, I rarely heard or saw anything anymore. English isn't my first language, but I hope I got across my encounters. As a teen, I just refused to go to sleep at normal hours, especially on weekends. Why, might you ask? Well, that's because the house that I lived in, and the land that the house was on, was haunted as shit. Staying up usually meant that you would see some freaky activity, and growing up in a small English town in Berkshire, that was as exciting as life got. So one night, when I was around 14 years old, I was staying up staring out my window when I started seeing glowing blue and purple lights coming from the forest behind my house. We don't have fireflies where I lived. I thought they were cool, so I just continued staring at them. I was trying to figure out what they were. Now, the way my house is set up, my bedroom window faced the forest and my back garden, and directly next to my room is a side gate that links to the front part of the house. On either side of the gates are motion sensor lights, so the lights in the forest may not have been paranormal. But what happened next most definitely was. The motion at the front of the gate triggers. This casts a faint light into my garden. The night grows really silent, with no more owls or crickets, and just this really eerie feeling, like I wasn't supposed to be seeing what I was seeing. The lights in the forest came to an ebb, and then just died. I listen carefully as I start to hear scuttling on the wood gate. It's muffled, so I slightly crack open my window to get a better look, to hear better. Now, that gate is always locked, with a heavy padlock on it at that. To this day, I have asked my dad if he ever left the gate unlocked that night, and he stands by the fact that unless he's gardening, the gate stays closed. This was in the spring, so he may have started seeding, something for my own comfort of mind. I'm going to assume that he left the gate open, Anyways, I hear the gate slowly swing open. The creaks of the wood were so loud against the silent night, so the sound was very distinctive. The motion light that's right underneath my bedroom window switches on. Honestly, to this day, I can't properly describe or explain what I saw. It was this off-white, veiny kind of skin texture, and it was about the size of a child. It walked on all fours and just looked sickly. Its hind legs were significantly longer than its front legs, and it looked to have hand claws. I hate having to link back to it, but it honestly kind of looked like the rake. Now, I've gone through the possibilities in my head. Trust me, it was too small to be the deer that frequented our garden. Also, it had no remote deer-like features. A badger or a fox with a disease is possible. However, I've never seen badgers or foxes with such long limbs and so disproportionate. Also, this thing was completely hairless, almost human-like. The worst part about it to me was how it slowly and silently moved up my garden path before disappearing into the woods. The noises of the night started back up after that, but I was so shook that I didn't sleep that entire night. I'm from England, so I haven't heard of any folklore that matches what I saw. I know that there were occult practices done in those woods behind my house, and I'm pretty sure it was pagan, hence not inherently bad or demonic, but I don't know what I saw. It scared the hell out of me. So like I said, those encounters were bizarre, yet terrifying. If one of them stuck out to you, let me know which one it was in the comments. If you have an encounter or story of your own, as always, I have an email in the description that you can send it to if you'd like to. Also down there are links to a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to donate to the channel. And of course here on YouTube, super thanks and memberships. But as always, just liking the video, commenting, sharing, telling your friends and all that great stuff. It's free and it helps the channel grow. It's a win-win. So, with all of that, I hope you enjoyed the videos this week. I hope you'll join me for next week. And there'll always be a space for you by the fire. So thank you for pulling up a stump, and I'll see you later. Have a good week.